What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Veilcast, episode number 10. That's right, we hit double digits. We're still here, still going strong. We even have 5 people this week. Myself, Alistair, and Velik, as always. Chris from across the pond. And a new guest, Scuba, fellow guildmate and Depths aficionado extraordinaire, right? Excited. Scuba, did you play Dark Age of Camelot, Scuba?
I did not.
You did not? Oh, my goodness.
My computer was the only thing that could run Ragnarok online.
Alright, I need to get someone who played Dark Age of Camelot. That's why I'm so excited for the Depths. It reminds me of what we had in that game. But we're super excited. Let's go around the horn. Alistair, what have you been up to? How you doing?
I'm doing fine. It's finally actually cold here in Brazil.
Cold in Brazil?
Yeah. Well, cold, given my standards, that is. But it is cold for the next couple weeks. It's winter. Winter's coming.
Winter is coming in Brazil. Oh my goodness! All right.
I wish winter was coming.
Winter's coming. What about you, Velik? How's it going there?
It's so hot.
Yeah.
God, it's miserable. But I'm doing pretty good.
Doing pretty good. Chris, you just got back from vacation, right?
Yeah. Well, I came back middle of the week from my parents in the south, so I'm pretty good, and I'm starting work tomorrow again. I wish I could stay on vacation.
It's the worst part of vacation, right? Coming back, pretty much. And
Exactly.
Scuba, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, why you're here, why people should listen to you.
Well, I don't know why anyone should listen to me.
Very convincing. Very convincing.
But I'm more of a PvEer over PvP. Although I do love the hell out of some PvP. I
Nice.
got most of my experience out of old school Korean MMOs because, as I said before, computer sucked. I could barely run Counter-Strike back in the day, and I fell into console gaming, then finally came back to MMOs. I've been playing WildStar for a long time.
Nice.
But, well, out in Chicago and ready for some Blackhawks to kick the crap out of Anaheim Ducks tonight.
Go Blackhawks. Well, let's jump in. I think this is probably going to be a long cast. We got 5 people here, and I think the Depths is maybe one of the coolest parts of the entire game. This is one of those things that could really set the game apart. We haven't seen it done like this before. So let's just jump in right away. Who can give me, if you've never seen anything about the game, who can give me a really good overview explanation of what the heck the Depths is? Who knows what's going on?
Ooh.
Velik does? All right, Velik, tell me, what's up? What is going on here?
Picture crazy kind of post-apocalyptic caves where I imagine the old world has been kind of sunken into. And there's crazy like traps and monsters and stuff in some kind of a weird horror-based atmosphere where you still have to delve down in there to find out some of the history about the world and just to get really good crafting materials and stuff from that area. And the whole time you're going to have to fight other players to get it. You're going to have to fight against crazy monsters and traps that are just waiting to kill you with a little spy cam so that people can laugh when you fall in their trap and they can show it to their friends. Craziness.
Craziness. So it's a dungeon, right? Then it's just a big
Sorta.
dungeon? Is that all it is?
It's what I picture it is being a dungeon that's always different because the other faction creates the dungeon for you, and then when you overthrow them and kick them out, you have to suffer through their dungeon.
Dungeons confirmed.
Dungeons confirmed. Right? Dungeons confirmed.
Dungeons Unchained.
The game is ruined. The Scuba brought his PvE into the game, right?
You're gonna have bosses.
That's your fault, Scuba.
Right? Well, there is
my tier 1.
there is some PvE, right? I mean, Mark has never said that there's no monsters in the game. There's just no quests. There's no PvE progression in that sort of normal sense.
No loot. No item
Right,
loot.
like-
No XP from killing monsters.
But this is kind of like a dungeon where you go in and there's monsters. I talked about Dark Age Camelot earlier because that's where this comes from. And so you go in and it's in that game, in Dark Age Camelot, I think this could be similar. Let's start at the very beginning. How do you even get into the Depths? Anybody know? We have a couple of videos out. They talked a little bit. What are our theories? How do you even gain access to the Depths?
Well, we don't know exactly yet, but it seems that the entrance is going to be like changing, or there will be multiple entrances. It seems like factions will be able to take control of the entrance if it's only one or multiple. We're not sure, but it should be somewhere in the islands, but I don't know exactly how they're going to distribute that. Only on the center island. There will be some on the edge islands. It's still unclear.
They kind of mentioned
I
that
think it's gonna work like the bubbles for the resources for the entrances. So it's gonna be a randomized entrance pops, as far as I remember reading about.
Well, they
I don't
mentioned
know if
it in that one video,
yeah.
or not video, but that
Yeah.
one story where in the story there was they got into it somehow. And in
Yeah.
Dark Age Camelot, they had a lot of keeps out there, and whoever controlled the most territory, the most keeps, opened up Darkness Falls, which was the depths for Dark Age Camelot. Whoever had the most keeps got access to it, and then they could go in. And whoever was in there before, they could no longer get in, but if they were already in there, so if you're already in the depths and another side gets it for you, then you can stay in there until you get killed, right?
Yeah, that was Darkness Falls, right? For Dark
Yeah.
Age.
Right, Darkness Falls, yeah. And
People were camping in there all the time to make sure to not be locked out.
right, you
One
just
thing I
log
thought
out in
about-
there.
spot.
And,
One thing I thought about in there is they kind of mentioned in reference to that the depths itself is going to be hostile to the players.
right.
And so one thing that made me think about that is what if they made it so that the longer one faction controls the depths, the more it starts making the entrances appear in the other faction's territory so that they can get access and come in there and kill you and force you out.
Okay.
That would be good.
That would be a
way
very
the
cool
depths
system.
kind of
Yeah.
reacting to you and going, I don't want you in here, get out. I'm going to let your enemies in here so they can kill you.
Right. And to
Yeah.
Scuba, you talked about how you like PvE, right? You like all that sort of stuff. This has got maybe the most PvE stuff you can do in it, right? Is that why you're so excited for the depths? It's maybe got the most for you?
Yeah, it's that, and there are just so many different ways you could work RVR into like a kind of a open world raid instance.
Right.
You know, just there opens up all that little room for ganking and what they were talking about. I think which will probably be in the video we're about to watch, or at least a clip where players can control mobs.
Yeah,
But
that's one of the
once
cool
you kill
things.
something, you can control it. And my whole thought was maybe there's some big raid boss that your whole group of like summoners can control and spawn that outside of the depths, and that could almost work as a MOBA, like in Heroes of the Storm with the mines. There's that boss that once you collect however many skulls, you can spawn it and it'll attack.
Then you get the
your
boss.
keep.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And you're also talking, Velik, you just touched on how the depths doesn't like you, right? It like fights you and then combats you, and that kind of ties into the Veil, how the Veil, Veil storms kind of change people and stuff. But they also talk about a big factor of this is making it almost scary, right? It's almost like a horror movie or something, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's supposed to be creepy and kind of scary and dangerous for you.
yeah, I mean, there's so much to talk about over here. I mean, I guess let's go around the horn real quick. I want to get everybody's opinion. We're going to watch a couple of clips here, and we're going to dive in and talk a little bit more in detail. But just as an overview, from what you know, from what you've heard, what are you really excited for about the depths? What do you think, why do you think it's going to be good? Or do you think it's going to be good at all? Alistair, what do you think about the depths?
I'm excited to actually go there and kill people while they're trying to accomplish something, which is much more rewarding. Like they're like, oh, let's kill that boss, and they form a group, and then you just go and bam, kills the tank. Run.
I'm just gonna
You
go
know,
ruin
that kind of
your
stuff.
day.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is freaking awesome. Just disrupting other people's PvE efforts where they're trying to kill this dragon because they want the scales to do some armor or whatever it is, and they're organizing and they just come in with a couple friends and freaking kill their healers, that kind of stuff is generates real anger in PvP, which is what motivates it. So I'm eager to bring friends there that want to kill those mobs and then like protect them, be around and watching out, putting traps and saying, if anybody comes over from that direction, tries to interrupt us, we have traps there, we have somebody watching, that kind of stuff. The PvP that is created from having some PvE elements in it is what is exciting me for the depths the most.
Right. And you talk about, I mean, it's so hard because there's so much stuff, and we have this whole idea of the depths. We're kind of cherry picking little pieces of it that we're kind of talking about. Let's give a good overview if someone hasn't read about it, if they don't know much about the game. We talked a little bit about it, Velik. The depths is like a dungeon. We don't know how exactly you gain access, but you go in there, right? And Alistair, you're talking about how you like killing people and taking, because they're trying to do stuff. There's mobs in there's monsters, there's bosses, there's also tons of resources. So people want access to this to get stuff, right? To get all the good stuff that's in there. And that's why you want to gain access to it, right? And that's what you're talking about, Alistair, is going in there and denying them that stuff.
Yeah,
that
the whole idea is that when you're
Ruining
defending a keep, or when you're out trying to gank gatherers, or when you're scouting, any of those PvP situations, there are PvP situations. So you're ready to die. If you die, it's like, okay, you die in PvP, right? That's the general thought. You were expecting something of the sort. But when your mind is completely on another challenge, it's like focusing on killing the boss or finding where this mob is, and then this moron keeps popping up in front of you and just killing you every time you're getting close. It's much more unnerving, right? It's different. I mean, that's why I always liked in previous games that have PvP and PvE as a focus. I always like to be like in daily islands, killing people over there,
Right.
because they're there to do daily quests and you're not letting them, It's funnier that way, at least for me. But I understand that it's not fun for everybody, but that's what excites me.
Yeah. Let's watch a little bit of it. It's an old video. It's one of the first videos they put out during the Kickstarter, where Mark talks a little bit about the depths, kind of what it looks like from his own words. Let's watch this video, and we'll come back and talk about that.
Is the role of the depths in an RVR-focused game like Camelot Unchained? Well, let me tell you. First, mines. Contained within the depths are some of the most valuable mines in the game. If you want to get to them, you got to get through the depths. You got to get through the other team that wants to stop you. You've got to get through the NPCs in order to get to those mines. Once you get to the mines, of course, your crafters get involved. Now, besides the mines, there are other things. We've got the great forges. These forges are scattered all around the depths. You'll find them in some pretty obvious places, kind of like the big neon light and arrow pointing down. Though, of course, there are no arrows in the game unless they're sticking in somebody's back. But you will want to get to them, and you'll want to control them, because after all, your crafters are going to want to use them. If you want some special equipment, if you want something that can only be made in one of the great forges, you'll have to take charge of the depths. So, we've got mines, we've got forges. What else do we have there? We have lots of things that can be scavenged from the depths. Because as we've talked about just a little bit in terms of the backstory, of course, of Camelot Unchained, there's been an apocalypse. What once was is no more, except for what might be found underground. And that's part of the secret of the depths. Because not only do you have mines,
we're talking about the depths and the secrets and this old stuff that's down there and mining, and it seems like every episode we're talking about crafters, Chris. No wonder you like this game so much, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Tell me, Chris, why are you excited for the depths as a crafter? What he's talked about, I mean, because there's a whole bunch of other stuff we haven't even gotten to, but just the fact that there's these awesome items, mining and stuff. He talked about these like special crafting stations that you can only find down there. What is so cool about the depths? What are you excited about, and what makes it different than all the other stuff you get around the world already?
There's two sides actually, for my opinion. First, I'm excited because you're gonna have very special resources and very special crafting done there, which is gonna add also a lot of excitement for the crafting, because it's a PvP zone. You're crafting, basically you're crafting in the middle of a battlefield. So while you're
whoa, we got somebody's phone going off or something.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. That's probably me.
Alistair. Yeah, basically you're basically crafting in the middle of a battlefield. So you might have people like Alistair who like to ruin your day and feed on tears, just killing you in the middle of a crafting, and you might lose. Depending on the item, as we know, it might take days or weeks to craft. You might lose days of crafting because of that. So that's one thing that excites me a lot.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. Yep. I mean, you're talking about crafting in the depths, because normally we think you can be back at home, you can have your Vox Magus at your keep back in the safe area. This, you're out in the depths. You're in a PvP area. Alistair, I mean, let's talk about this, everybody. What do you think about having these kind of really super powerful, awesome item, kind of, you know, all this stuff out there? I mean, it's pretty awesome, right?
It is cool, but it's complicated because they said that they don't want to make the depths the main focus, you know, because there's the fight upstairs, essentially.
Well, this does make it the focus, though, doesn't it?
It kind of does. That's you know, that concept is very easy to mess up. You know, if you make so that certain better items just spawn down the depths, then you know everybody's gonna try to go there all the time. But
yeah, I'm kind of worried about the forges myself.
I think the forges
they really have to be very careful with. Not necessarily because of not wanting to focus on the main RVR map, but for me, because I don't want to see them detract too much from the Vox Magus. That's supposed to be the focus of the crafters. They get this cool Vox Magus that makes everything, and then they can do group crafting and all this other stuff with the Vox Magus. And I'm like, well, then they suddenly come, oh, by the way, these great forges, you can make cool things in there that you can't make anywhere else. And I'm like, that's cool, but I'm kind of worried about how you do that.
Yeah, but that might be that. Well, again, the Vox is always about tuning magic with your crafting. Maybe you just have to put your Vox in next to the forge and tune your Vox to the forge's magic, because the forge will be magic also. Regarding the worries some have, I had the same, but I'm thinking to detract from that and to make the depth very interesting, but not the main focus. You have to make the resources and the crafting very specific. For example, if you have special abilities, not the most powerful items, but very specific abilities, or maybe the better etchings for the ERS system, being done there, maybe focused on the. I think I'm not a big fan of magic, so I haven't looked into all the magic systems there's going to be. But I think there's going to be black magic or dark magic. Maybe the best counters will be down in the depth.
Yeah,
so
maybe
if you craft something there, it's going to counter black magic more easily, for example, rather than being, in general, the best items.
Yeah, the thing that helps is that you don't get stats from the items, right? You just get certain properties.
Exactly.
So you get a certain resistancy, a certain bonus to casting this or that type of spells.
Yeah, they can focus on specialty items.
Yeah, so they already told us that you're not going to get plus 10 strength from the armor. You know, you're going to get, you know, plus, you know, you're going to get reduced cost on casting spells or lightning spells or whatever. So maybe if they made it very specific, so only certain types of character builds and classes were interested in going there, then it would be something that you want to go to, but it's not a requirement or it's not the best place. And I think another way to do that, besides that what Chris mentioned, is to just make it so the forges in there maybe speed up the process. Maybe if you are a guild that is smaller and you don't have too many crafters and you don't have those really collective Vox Mages that they have mentioned there might exist, then you can go down to the depths and use the forges there to craft stuff faster. It is the same stuff you would craft above the surface, but it's just much more fast, you know. So essentially, it gives you an edge, and it's something that you might want to take because it speeds up the gear production. But it's not necessarily needed. You know, other people can get the same stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I'm just speculating here, but
I could definitely see that being a problem. I mean, we talked about how in other games crafting wasn't really important because there were other ways of getting better gear. And here we have this great crafting system with the Vox Magus, which is supposed to be the gear, but if there's another way in the depths that gets you as good, better gear, different gear, faster gear, that could totally negate it all. And another concern here I want to talk about is in Dark Age of Camelot, the way you got to the depths was because you were the most powerful, right? You had the most area. So it's kind of almost rewarding the winners. Well, if you reward the winners with access to better, faster, stronger gear that's making the winners more powerful. Anybody see a problem with that?
I see in two hands. One, I'm hoping they don't do it that way because I don't want to see them just make it so the only way to get in there is by dominating land.
Even if that's not the case, though, Val, even if that's not the case, you're going to have the stronger side. Let's say it's the Arthurians.
Yeah.
The Arthurians on top of the world were stronger. You open the depths, and they're stronger down there, too. They have more access to it. You're just... Whoever's the strongest, you're giving things to... That's the whole point of why they have the daily shutdowns or whatever, where they can reward the underdogs to help them come back. The depths is the opposite of that, right?
Well, I was going to say, too, if they do it that way, then that makes the strongest group send some of their people into the depths, which then may allow another faction to take over the terrain, in theory. But that's why I'm hoping what they'll focus on is items that have specialization down there. Like maybe I think, as Chris said, you can create things that have darkness resistance down there. You can't make them anywhere else. They're not necessarily better. They're just good against one thing, and that's the only place you can get them. So that's where you go to get them. So that doesn't necessarily make them better than everyone else, because then those factions just go, okay, fine. We don't have access. They have access to all these things against this one type of magic or something.
So no one makes darkness magic, and then no one goes to the depths because no one needs it anymore.
I'm not saying it's going to be that simple. I'm just
Right.
saying that that's how they can kind of angle it in there. And the other thing that I've seen more people confused, kind of worried about, is how they said that the rare crafting mats are going to be down there. And so I've seen all kinds of people worried about that, talk about how maybe that'll detract from the main combat area because then people will be just going to the depths to get that. But I think it's the same thing. They don't, just because there are rare mats down there doesn't mean all the rare mats have to be down there. If they just put a couple of things that you need down there, people are going to go down there to get them.
The Scuba, what do you think? Scuba, hop in there. Come on, what do you think, man?
God, I had an idea.
He had one and he lost it.
It was hey, what Mark Jacobs is talking about is that the depths are essentially also going to be a NPC, so it's going to have its own movements, its own changes. So one thing that they could do for balancing is the weaker side maybe I'm thinking of it as a cavern system,
Right.
so maybe 1 week that path that you take to get to the Great Forges disappears, and now next thing you know, it's the closer or the fastest way to get there is the TDD.
Oh, I got you. So maybe
And
walls
or
close
maybe
up.
The Vikings has like a little faster access to it, or the resource paths are completely different. So that's one way they could balance it, where maybe the weaker faction has an easier access to materials, so they can stock up a little faster before Arturians or the Vikings
And that goes back to the idea I mentioned.
Destroy them all.
That goes back to the idea I mentioned earlier of the depths being hostile towards the players, and so maybe if someone controls the depths for too long, then it starts opening passageways to the other factions, and that could even be a way of helping establish realm balance for all the RVR, because if one faction gets too powerful and takes over the depths for too long, well, then other factions get easier access for a while until they catch up some.
And I hope they make the depths really hostile, like with mobs all over the place and stuff, so it is hard to walk over there, because I don't want to see people using the depths to move through the map, like getting in one entrance, coming out on the other, just to avoid players and stuff, using that as it's easier to go through the depths. No, it's not. It shouldn't be. Going through the depths should be always hard.
That, and also, since... as they said, the entrance might be completely random. The exit will be also, so you don't know where you end up where you exit. You might exit in the middle of a keep, controlled by the other faction, and get slaughtered the moment you exit. Or I don't know. It doesn't. But yeah, I agree that it has to be a very hostile environment.
That could be a really fun gameplay thing, though. If you have a group of friends and you have a guild and you send out scouts and they report back, hey, this exit leads right outside the keep of these people we hate. You all go over there. It maybe takes you half an hour, but you fight through all the mobs, and maybe you die because the mobs are really hard, or maybe you get through and surprise! Here's a whole raid up your butt, right? Like that could be a lot of fun. that could be really. That's dynamic gameplay. It's not boring. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, but like I said, doing something like that should be like the exception. You just do it to surprise the enemy, because nobody expects you to do such a thing because it's hard.
Right.
If it is, it can't become the standard way of traveling. That's what I'm talking about. Oh, let's just go through the depths because there are less people there, so we have less chance of bumping into the enemy Zerg, and so let's just do that.
Yeah, you don't want it to skip mechanics. Like in ESO, people would just die to guards so they could teleport across the map, and this kind of cheap stuff. You want it to still be meaningful. Yeah, definitely, I agree.
Yeah, and it would be a longer travel time also because the depths are supposed to be a whole zone. A whole zone, so it has to be big.
Yeah,
it has to
and
be
there will be caves, so it's
time.
like sometimes you have to go around and then you keep going up and down. When in the surface you just go on a straight line, just following a road or something. In the depths, it's like freaking caves, and sometimes you want to go north, and then you first have to go east, and then south a little bit, and then north, and then yeah. I mean, they have to make sure that the ways are just longer.
Yeah. Do you guys think we touched on it for a second, but Marcus talked about how he wants this to be like a scary place, right? Said, what is the name? Geiger and Lovecraft and like this scary kind of movie thing. I don't know. Do you think that's possible? I know they have scary games, but that's like the whole game is focused. Is this going to be cheesy? What?
I think it is because I love horror and I love horror games, but if I can use an example of a completely different game genre, for me, the most enjoyable multiplayer game experience I've had that was scary was Alien vs. Predator 2. Multiplayer, first-person shooter game. Deathmatch maps. They're just little bitty maps. You walk around these corridors and everything. But it was creepy and scary if you played it as a human because it was suspenseful. You never knew when one of these fucking invisible predators
right.
or an alien that was hiding in a vent was going to jump out and just completely slaughter you. You didn't know when it was going to happen. And so I think if they make the depths like that where, we've talked about traps, we've talked about player-controlled monsters, crafters building spawn points for monsters. If they make it so that it's like that, and you go through there and you never know when one of these traps is going to get you, or these mobs are suddenly going to spawn all over the place and come swarming after you, I think it won't build true fright per se, but it can build suspense because you never know when it's going to happen, and that could be awesome.
And a lot of caution. You don't run around in the depth. You walk. No. You look around
and you bring friends.
And you bring friends. You don't go there alone.
Especially because you don't know the depths, right? The caves keep changing, so you don't even know where you are. You just pop in and you're like, now what? Just move and hope for the best.
Is scary.
Alistair, do you think it's going to keep changing though? Like the Scuba, you talked about it too. Do you think it's? I mean, we know in the lore that it's this living thing, right? But in the game, if I walk in this entrance and it's this way, a week later I walk in another entrance. I mean, do we think it's going to change and be completely different? Is that even possible, game mechanic wise? Like in the time they have left to build the game?
I don't know.
I think it is because if you just need to make different maps of the depth with different passages, since the entrance will be bubbles like the crafting the resources nodes. The moment you enter, some entrance will lead to a map, some entrances will lead to another one, and you can swap that. Or when people respawn there, I don't think you will be able. At least you shouldn't be able to camp there, to log off in the depth. Mm-hmm. So when you re-enter, the map will have changed.
Yeah, I think in order to do that, they'd have to make it so that you can't just, like you said, it's a bubble. So you have to go into it, and there has to be a point when there's no one in the depths. So when it flips factions, there have to be something either just inside the depths or just outside of it that you have to fight over. Maybe when the other faction gets control of that, they gain control of the depths. When they go in, it switches to a new depths. So everything changes the appearance.
It could also happen during the server resets.
Exactly, that's what I was about to say.
But then people are setting traps too, so the map can't change while there's traps and stuff in there because then it would mess up all the traps. So I don't know how that would work.
I'll go back to Ragnarok Online with this. They had one thing called the Hidden Temple, which was basically a bunch of different map squares, all in one major map, and each section had 3 or 4 different teleports or each square had a couple teleporting spots. So you would enter one way. You'd think you're going north. It'll send you across the map. So what they could do is have just these different phases where at the daily shutdown, the map stays the same, just those
Different
phased
parts open up
teleportals.
and
Yeah, you
Switch.
basically.
So those traps still exist and everything.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
it's a different
Do you
way to get around.
Do you think it would be possible for them to adapt the cube system to have a way for the players themselves to change the appearance of the depths while they control it?
no, I don't think so.
I don't think building should be something you do in the
Well,
depths.
I was just, not
No
necessarily-
building in
not
the depths.
necessarily-
Hold on.
Not necessarily building, but some way that players can go, okay, it looks like this. They're used to it looking like this. Before we lay down traps, how about we move this tunnel over here? Something I don't know. I'm just trying to think of how they
It would
could
be
possibly
cool.
make
I
it
don't-
change
Well, kinda-
appearance without messing up the traps and everything that are in there. Because I would
Kinda
love for the
like,
depths to be able to change appearance over time.
Landmarks or something where you can make like a signpost or something that only your group would know. So this
Mind
is the
the
way
gap.
that you go to follow the.
I think it'd be great. I don't think we're going to see anything like this. And we talked about it for a bit, but think we have the cube system, which is really what they've built to have the world change over time. The cube system is what's going to affect and change the world. None of the systems they've had so far have really said anything about affecting the world. Like maybe if they take the system they're using for the map, how the big pieces move together, but even then, those land pieces are so big you don't really see it happening. You know what I mean?
What if they had caves collapse? So bear with me. You're in the depths. You're down there moving around. All of a sudden, this one cave starts to shake. The crumbles and stuff start falling down. You're like, oh shit, it's collapsing. You run out of it, and then the entrance blocks off, and then they move somewhere else. So they adjust one part of the map at a time in some kind of a preset fashion that changed it around. And
we
stuff.
could ask
Like, those
Descuba and
chambers.
Alistair. Descuba and Alistair look like they're in the depths right now. It's pretty dark where they're at. What's it like for you guys there in the depths? Is it scary?
Nothing changes ever.
Nothing ever changes. Let's jump in. We have another section of the video. It's just 2 minutes. Let's check it out. Mark talks a little bit more about the depths and how they're going to work.
Mines, forge, scavenge material, the veil. Anything else? Absolutely. The NPCs. Now, these are not bosses. I'll explain that later in this update. But there are NPCs in there. There need to be. These NPCs are geared to whatever side currently, controls the depths. When you control it, you can help your chances of keeping control as well as dealing with the enemy by bringing in some of these NPCs to help you. How you do that? Well, that's where the places of power come in. Terrible in name, I know. Very, very tropey, very cliched. We'll do better. But for right now, let's just call them pops. So when you go to these pops and you control these pops, you'll be able to cause NPCs to pop. Okay, that was bad, sorry. But that's the idea. You will be able to summon these creatures, control these creatures in what, boy, is starting to sound a bit like, some tower defense mechanics. And that is the next thing I want to talk about for the depths. So, I mentioned tower defense mechanic, and that is part of what makes the depths different from any other, or certainly most other, RVR/PvP dungeons I've seen in MMOs. Obviously not in standalone games, of course, because there have been some tremendous standalone games such as Orcs Must Die, which used a mechanic like this. But this is certainly a different one, especially for MMOs. So your crafters are going to be able to come in and build traps. They're going to be able to build structures. They're going to be able to build weapons, catapults, ballistas, other things to make it more, interesting when the other side comes into the depths. So first, you have an RVR dungeon, which by controlling it, you get all sorts of, goodies. Second, you have the tower defense aspect, where your crafters, and even some of your non-pure class crafters, can come in and set up defenses. Because frankly, you're going to lose control of this. Everyone loses control after some time. And when you do, you want to be able to make sure that the other team, the other realm that's going to come in there, they won't have such an easy time about it. So besides the loot, you guys get to make life miserable for the other realm that is going to take control after you do. And while that's pretty good, let me tell you about a fun little thing that we're also adding to that mechanic. We've talked about the goodies, we've talked about the tower defense aspect, and now let's talk about showtime.
All right, I'm going to stop it right there. I'm not going to show you. You got to go watch the video if you want to see everything he's talking about. But we've talked about how they got good loot down there. There's minerals and stuff you can get. There's forges you can use. He just talked about how you can set up traps, and everybody can set up maybe a little bit of traps, and the crafters can set up really awesome traps. He talked about, what is it, places of power. We're going to talk about that. And then also showtime. So let's jump right in first. Right? It's like, I don't know that. Let's talk about the places of power. How do you guys think this is going to work? It's like a spawn and a mob thing, and I don't even. What do you think? Anybody?
I have no idea. I mean, I don't know.
They gave us no info on that. I don't know.
Is it going to be like maybe an area, and then like, because you see it in other games, like you hold the area for a while, and then some mob spawn. I mean, hopefully, it takes longer than a few seconds, but.
I saw some guys from Ku Klux Klan there with some robes and stuff. I hope those places of powers really have some like guards and stuff. So taking them, so you have to avoid them if you don't control the depths. Essentially,
I was thinking those might be part of how you get control of the depths in the first place. Is maybe there are some places of power out on the RVR map. By claiming them, you flip the depths so people can fight there to fight over them. Maybe you can even spawn PvE mobs to help defend them, and then if the enemies take them over, they flip the depths. In addition to whatever's in the depths.
Yeah, Zero Mouse Shot is saying that he thought maybe there were places maybe there's specific places in the depths that you could build on, and when you control it, you get that place of power. Mark talked about gaining control of NPCs, and they like fight for you, which is kind of separate. Later in the video, if you watch this, he talks about how maybe he talks about bosses, and I don't think we're going to show the video clip. There's also like some big monster bosses that you can take control of. But this is like a separate thing. Maybe like easier mobs, packs of mobs. Discuba, how do you think this whole places of power, how's the pop going to work?
Oh, places of power. That's another great question. But I was just thinking about how you'd control these mobs. And, I was going along the lines as weren't they talking about how you could gain souls from enemies?
Oh yeah, when you kill them, you can maybe take a soul.
And that's what I was thinking more along the lines of, is that maybe even these mobs you could because there's not going to be, it's not just going to be PvP. I think they were always talking about how even in the main world there are still going to be some like animals and some monsters as like a resource base, so you can collect like leather and scraps and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So maybe as you can collect all these animal souls and start spawning them in the depths to fight against your enemies, and maybe the places of power are the only way that you can bring these mobs to life. So
that
if
is
you
a cool
control
concept.
places of power, then it's almost like you can, like a MOBA again, that you could use your enemies or use these.
Oh my God, it said MOBA.
NPCs to push.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense using the same sort of soul system. Alistair, you said that you think that would work?
Yeah, I think it would be cool, because right now all we've seen about the soul system is putting it on items for crafting, right?
Right.
So it would be cool if the PvPers, the fighters, had something to do with the souls too, because we know that the crafters will, but it would be cool if you could use the souls to actually accomplish something in PvP, and that would be nice to use, certain amount of souls to just summon or control a big monster in the depths.
Sure, you like
X amount of souls turns you into a boss monster when the depths flips.
Yeah, or you collect 50 of them, and then you go to this place of power with these 50 souls you collected, and you give the souls to this place of power, and then boom, a bunch of mobs spawn, and they go through the depths and kill your enemies for you, or maybe they spawn.
I think the mobs, for me, the place of power will have probably several uses, but he talks a bit about tower defense. I think maybe the play for the mobs, the general mobs, it could be a place where you set them in the depth with the behavior, like different towers for the tower defense, like different defenses that you can set around aside from traps to defend places, and then the bosses are really the one you control like a character. The general mobs are more like NPCs you set as defense, but the bosses are the ones you really fully control. A bit like the new game, the FPS, where you have 3 players playing the hunters and 1 playing the monster. I don't remember. Evolve. And you play the monster. You have your own set of abilities, and you can actually that could be a raid objective.
Well, he talks about that later in the video, right?
Yeah.
He talks about how there's bigger bosses, and he alluded to it in a part earlier we watched. But there's some bigger bosses, and he said, like, when the other faction comes in, you can take control of the boss. And that's kind of what he talked about towards the end there, and that we didn't watch all of it. When he's talking about showtime, there's kind of 2 parts of it, I think. Crafters can set up basically a camera that you can watch. So you're in the depths, the other people are coming to kill you, you set up all your traps, you set up a camera, and then when you're out of the depths, when you die, you're back at home, you're sitting in a tavern, you can watch basically a live video feed of what's going on in the depths and see people being killed by your traps. And then also, Chris, like you're talking about with these monsters, people could control the bosses to fight the people who are coming in, right? I mean,
grab some popcorn.
Right, grab some popcorn.
Grab some popcorn.
I want to make
let's see them die.
The showtime is
those
honestly
wasted videos. You see, you kill someone and a big wasted across the screen.
I mean, did I hear that right? Like, it's been a while since I watched the whole video, but is that that's the way it works, right?
The showtime idea is actually one of my favorite parts of the depths, just because I picture, like right now, we're in freaking live stream. I picture how many YouTube videos are going to go up of the game, of people in the depths, and just like you said, wasted. They walk in there, this boss mob starts coming out and attacking them, and they're fighting it, and it starts backing up, kind of kiting them around, and they're like, what the hell? It won't stand still so we can fight it. All of a sudden, it leads them into a giant pit trap, and half their team falls in and dies.
I can already see it. I can already see. Chris reacts to Depth's video, and then there's like, a little webcam of Chris in the corner, and then the video of people dying on his traps. They're like, oh, look at that.
It's got to be him crashing at a box, and all of a sudden a boss just creeps up behind him and one-shots him across the room.
No, you can. I mean, there's so many options. I mean, Twitch is huge. Millions of people watch Twitch, and they're not playing a game. They're just watching. That's what you're doing. In-game, you're watching the game. How awesome is that? You got that, and then also, what do you guys think about controlling these bosses?
That's cool because I think it would be awesome if you could, it's controlling the boss is not something you really want to do if you own the depths, right? It doesn't make much sense, but you see that you're about to lose it, so oh my God, they're taking the depths, run into the depths with the group, go to the mob, do whatever you got to do to control it. If it's souls, if it's mechanisms, or
sacrifice
whatever.
a virgin, right?
Yeah, sacrifice a virgin, control the mob, and then first you find a virgin. That might take a while. Right. Then you go sacrifice her, and you control the mob, and then you just control the mob, and everybody dies. And then you're just there, you're kind of pretending to be the actual NPC mob. And then when the enemy players actually control the depths and come in, you're like, killing everybody because you were a player, right? So that kind of stuff is freaking awesome.
I mean, that'd be the coolest feeling because you get this like, I'm huge, overpowered, I can kill a whole raid by myself. You're not beholden to these terrible mechanics where people can kite you and you never attack the healer or the DPS. Like, forget that. Forget all the right. I'm going for the squishiest guy in the back. I'm killing you first. Right? Yeah. And you guys were talking about earlier, Discooby, you said how you could sneak around and one-shot people from behind or this boss mob. Like, that would scare the crowd. A giant boss comes out. Velik, you were talking about how, kiting people into traps as this boss. Like, that adds such a huge element of gameplay that, you don't see in other games, right? That's pretty awesome, but it's still PvP. I think it's awesome. Are there any downsides? You guys any problems with this kind of mechanic?
The way that I think it should work is that when you're controlling this boss, I mean, your actual player character should be vulnerable. And dying while controlling a boss, like, say, if you're hidden in a corner and an enemy finds you, that should break your connection.
Oh, it's like mind control. You gotta be close to it or something.
Right. No, it could be, like, anywhere. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll even go to Call of Duty. Like, you get the little RCXD.
Right, you hide in a corner.
If a player kills you, then your RCXD, is no longer under your. Well,
yeah, maybe it's just a mind connection.
Mm-hmm.
So if you die, then the boss should become free reign again, and
so that forces you to be around your own.
You're pushing from behind your boss, and then all of a sudden it turns around and cleaves the entire group.
Right.
because
That'd be
your
interesting.
mage or your crafter, whoever's controlling this thing, just got murdered because no one was protecting it.
That would be interesting. I personally would probably kind of rather see your character dies and then you take over the mob monster as the monster, because I don't think when you're playing as the monster and fighting the other faction, I don't think our characters are even going to be in the depths.
Yeah, because he talks about it when you're losing the depths.
And dead. So
it's like when you lose the depths. This is like the last stage, a last ditch effort just to inflict pain on your enemy as they come in.
Yeah, I do have one worry about this entire system of controlling traps and monsters and everything. As much as I like it, I do kind of worry that with all of this opposition to someone moving in and actually being able to use the depths, having to get through your traps, get through your mobs, get through your giant player-driven boss mob, will anyone be able to control the depths long enough to actually use it before another faction takes it away from them and takes it over from themselves?
Yeah, and then they take it over, and then just, it's basically just like the political system, right? You get elected, then all you think about is getting reelected, right? So you go into the depths, and finally we got over, all their traps and stuff. Now let's set up more traps for when we lose it, right? And then you don't actually do anything in the depths.
Yeah, that's going to be only setting traps. Nobody will farm, nobody will mine, nobody will craft in there, but making traps. And that's going to be, I think it's going to be partly that. It's going to be one side of the game in and of itself. If they make it interesting enough, people will not go to the depth to do what is actually intended only, but also because it's fun to set traps for the others and to disrupt others' gameplay. So I think it's going to be one of the threats of the depth, beside the unique resources and the forge.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it makes it a side game, right? It's not part of the main. It's just something for fun. You do it, but it's not influencing the main fight. So that's cool.
A lot of people in chat are talking about how, broadcasting this stuff could be really cool. That's like, we talked about in a couple other past broadcasts about why would people come to your building? You build, you make your house, you make your keep. Why would someone come to it? They might want to buy your stuff. This is another reason to get people out there. Oh, I heard that Descuba always has these crazy cameras. Right, and Descuba's house in game is the place you go to after we lose the depths, because he's got in game. Yeah, he's got all these screens up. Like, I don't know how you access it in game, right? But I just imagine you go in there.
The Buffalo Wild Wings.
Right. There's like videos up, right? We got this game over here,
a monster and a cover at the door.
Yeah, there's a monster going on over here. These traps are over here, and you find out, I think people will make a name for themselves. Chris is the guy who always sets up the best cameras, and he's got like 10 of them in there, and it's like, this is a whole new kind of cool thing. Like, I could see myself doing that. If we lost the depths, I would run around and try to find people like, hey, who's got some sweet action of what's going on in the depths? I want to watch.
Depths just like Hunger Games.
Yes, exactly.
Everybody's like a gathering to watch the depths on the big screen,
Yeah, and in chat, you're like, hey, we got 5 feeds from the depths, and we're controlling this boss. Everybody come look. And you just got a whole bunch of people to come to your keep who's going to buy your stuff from your merchant now, watching your live feeds, watching your people fighting in the depths. You're making a name for yourself. Velik is the best, boss controller. He just wiped out 50 of the enemies. They really hate Velik now. Don't let him get a control of the boss. There's a lot of cool stuff. I hope this works out.
Bounty on my head.
Right, there's a bounty on your head. There will be bounties in the game. I don't know. I think there's so many cool things that we haven't even hardly touched on. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think the whole system is amazing. I think it's one of the best things.
It is.
It's one of the
the only
coolest things.
Yeah, it is a very cool concept. The only worries that we all have when we're talking about all this stuff that is, we have little info about and it's far away, is the fact that it might be too relevant or that it might be irrelevant, right? That's what they have to be careful with. You know, it might be so boring or less little rewarding that nobody actually goes do all this stuff we're talking about there because it's a waste of time, right? And if it's too influential, if it's if it has too much stuff in there, then it might become all about the depth, which is also a bad thing. Yeah. So that's the balance is the only issue. But if they manage to balance it in a nice way, then I'm very excited to see it. Right?
I'm very excited to see it as well. One thing I hope they improve on, I feel like with Dark Age of Camelot, their system only allowed access to one side at a time. And you had this really cool period of time, 30 minutes or an hour, where the new people were rushing in. You had all this fighting and stuff, and after that it kind of died down. And then the people who had access to it, it was cool and they're having fun, but it kind of nothing happened. The best part of it was this like rush. That first
flip.
Yeah, when it flips. And if they can find a way to make that happen quicker, maybe like we've been talking about, the depths kind of, doesn't like the people who are in there. Maybe it flips over quicker. Maybe every day or two, it really fights to push other people out. So we see that turnover a lot quicker. Let's go through. We got about 10 minutes left. We try to keep this at an hour for you guys, so it's not too long. But let's go around the horn. We'll go counterclockwise. Velix, starting with you, final thoughts, anything that you haven't gotten to say, and tell me why you're excited and why you might be worried about the depths.
I really want to see an awesome horror atmosphere. I want to see a depths that change, that isn't always the same, because I feel like it's necessary for it to change to have that suspense. Also, with the traps and the monsters really are going to help build it, but if the depths look the exact same all the time, people are going to identify spaces that are the best place to put traps. And then once they identify that, it's no longer the best place to put traps because everyone knows where it is. So I think it's necessary for the depths to somehow change over time and how it looks. And I really want to see that, because I really want to see this become a sort of suspense, horror-driven sort of PvE experience, or PvE, PvP experience that people can enjoy, and people can enjoy live streaming or putting up on YouTube and going back and reviewing and just looking at the just crazy things that sometimes happen in there.
Yeah. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Velik about the depth having to make you cautious. You have to go in there and be really cautious and fear having a trap or having something screw up your planning at every corner. But I also want to see how they make the resources and the crafting in the depth very unique. It has to be interesting enough to draw crafters there, but not too powerful or too unique to make it the only place to craft to and to make the best gear.
Good. Discoba, what do you think, man? Tell me. You didn't get to talk very much this time. Yeah. Tell me all of your thoughts.
Shoot. Sorry.
He just lost it.
My family just got it. I want to see this place evolve. I want to see that the stuff that's happening up top is truly affecting what's going on in the depths. And also, the main concern is always going to be that it's got to be relevant, but not too relevant.
Yeah.
It can't draw focus from the top, or from the top battles. It can't draw focus from the rest of land stabilization and everything. It's got to be worthwhile, but it can't be something that you have to be a part of.
I hear you. Alistair.
Okay. Well, like the Scuba just said, balance. And what I like the horror atmosphere that Valak was talking about. I think that's cool, and like the fear of the unknown, right? It's kind of a fundamental thing when you're creating an atmosphere of tension. When you want the players to be cautious, you want the players to be like looking out for themselves. If they know the place, the familiarity destroys that feeling. So it can't be familiar ever. It has to be something that is, might be familiar for a few days. So if you're playing every day of the week, yeah, maybe at the end of the week you're kind of gonna know it already. But and then it changes. As soon as people start getting to know the depths, it has to change a little bit. I don't know how they're going, if they are going to do something like that, or how they would do it without basically screwing up the traps. But I think they should at least try. And obviously, what I want to see is the whole being able to stay in the depths when the other enemies take it over, so you can actually disrupt their game. So instead of just controlling mobs and stuff, just like you did with Darkness Falls. You just hide on this area and you stay there because you know they're going to have to pass by there to get to a mine or whatever it is. So you just sit there, and then when they get into the mine, surprise, bitches, everybody's dead. So that kind of stuff would be freaking awesome. They think they passed by the enemy already, and then you're just lurking behind that, behind the corner. So it would be freaking awesome to see the kind of PvP that can go on in the depths that is not really focused on siege or any kind of resource fight. It's just I want to ruin their day, and just because, right? Because these kind of games need those extra activities. Otherwise, if you're kind of bored of just defending the same keep because they're pushing hard on the keep, maybe you just want to take a break and do something different. So you go down the depths and do whatever you want to do there. So that would be something cool to see.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the best part, in my opinion, is that it gives everything you're doing above ground, it gives that so much more meaning, because we're assuming that what you do above ground affects what you're doing underground, right, in the depths, either giving you access to the depths or whatever it is, because then it gives you something to keep fighting for. We want the depths, we want what's in there, so I'm super excited. I think it's going to be awesome. Yeah, any other ideas, thoughts, questions, concerns? Nothing?
Cave ducks.
I'm good, man.
Cave ducks. I think it's going to be awesome. Everybody, thank you so much in the live show for watching, your questions. If you're watching by recording, join us every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern on my live twitch.tv/itziz. And we will see you next week for the Veilcast.